Big boat. This is USS Ford. This is the most powerful military asset humanity has ever built. By itself, the Ford can take on any but the top 7 air forces on the planet. That assumes that the US Navy fights fair. The US Navy never fights fair. The whole point of a Navy is that the ships move. You get to choose the time and place of the fight. So really, one of these can take out any but the top 3 air forces in the world, one of which is the United States'. We're building 4 of them. They will then complement our pre-existing 10 Nimitz-class supercarriers, none of which we plan to decommission. 14 supercarriers. You want to knock off a country, this is the tool for the job. You want to patrol the global oceans so that commerce can flow unimpeded and without risk? This is a horrible choice because you can only be in 14 places at once. You need these, destroyers. You need at least 800 of them. We have 70, half of which are dedicated to protecting the carriers. We no longer have a military structure that is capable of protecting global commerce. So the question is, where would we focus our efforts if we need to? Simple population density map by province. If you're in the quadrant that's in the top left, the bottom left, or the bottom right, your part of the world is a net exporter of energy, of food, and of industrial inputs. Only the top right quadrant is a net importer. In fact, it's just this circle. Anyone notice a country in there that sometimes we're a little nervous about? The country most dependent upon globalization and the American-led structures that allow global commerce is the People's Republic of China. And if we get to a point where we have to make some decisions about whose trade to protect, who do you think is going to be at the bottom of the list versus the top? China is the most vulnerable economy in the world right now, next to Ukraine. All right, let's talk about some bigger issues. Back in 2014, a narrative took hold that fossil fuels were done. That if by 2040 our goal is just not using them at all, then you got to look at your balance sheets and think of what you're planning for. It takes 3 to 8 years for you to get first oil or natural gas from a conventional project, and then another 5 to 15 years to break even. Well, that's already past the 2035, 2040 timeframe. You'll never get your money back, so why would you put your money in the first place? Now, there's a number of logic errors on that particular freight train, but it took hold, and we got something called environmental and social governance, among other things. And we saw total investment, which this is total investment from all government and all private sources into all oil and all natural gas. We saw it drop by 2/3 in 7 years. 3 to 8 years from the time you put the money down that you get your first output. Remember that. Now, what is true for the average is not necessarily true for each individual piece, thank God. This is my favorite graphic sequence. I think I might have showed this to you guys back in 2013. It's been updated. This is what I like to call the checkbook map. Every dot there is someone who can pay their power bill. And here are the world's conventional oil and natural gas production zones. Watch North America, because here's where the commercial shale zones are. That's it. Over the course of the last 10 years, we've systematically removed other potential candidates from the market. Either they're not petroleum dense enough, or they're too deep, or they're too spread out, or too technically difficult. There's just very, very few of them, except for here. Now, there's a dozen reasons why American shale petroleum is fundamentally different from everybody else's, but I think this is the most important one. We produce our energy where we live. We don't have supply lines that wrap halfway around the world. So we don't need a global spanning Navy to keep the lights on here. But everyone else does, and no one else has a Navy. Yes, the Chinese technically have 600 ships to our 300, but most of those ships would fit in this room. Not all together, one at a time, don't be crazy. They only have a range of about 1,000 miles. All of our vessels are fully deep water capable. In fact, that 1,000 miles assumes that they're going in a straight line and no one's shooting at them, so they can go slow. In combat situations, you're talking less than 400 miles. There's no contest. There's not even a hint of a contest. Checkbook map again. This is the upper Midwest. This is the most critical, important city in the history of Western civilization. It's Marshalltown, Iowa. It's where I'm from. This is Bismarck, North Dakota. And if you're there, you got to ask yourself, why? And this is not a frat party. It's lit up because of a problem with transport. Oil is a liquid. It conforms to the shape of its container. You can put it into a rail car or a tanker or whatever. But natural gas disperses. And if you can't gobble it up into your gathering network at the pace that you produce it, you have to flare it. You can see that from space. It's the same in the Permian. It's the same in the Eagle Ford. Which means in the United States, and only in the United States, natural gas has been priced as a waste product. And that means we have changed how we use it. Over the last 12 years since the shale revolutions first hit the gas space, well, 16 years now really, we have seen natural gas usage and power generation expand by over 70%. We have changed our entire petrochemical system to, instead of running on oil, run on natural gas wherever possible. Our overall use of the stuff has increased by half since 2004, but it took a while. Here's pricing. Here's Henry Hub, natural gas pricing in the United States. These three spikes, you guys in the South, of course, know what these are. These are hurricanes. But by 2009, click, half of the natural gas that we produce in the United States came from shale, and every single shale well is onshore. So the energy sector became more and more inured to what happened elsewhere. And you can see for the next decade and so, we had prices below $4. Cheapest in the world, cheapest in history. Texans know what this spike is. This is what happened last January when Texas got cold. It got down to 27. Texans don't know how to deal with cold. Every system that they had failed, every single one. And then this is what we're all bitching about right now. We're at 9, which sounds just insane after being below 4 for almost 15 years. But 9 is right at the 50-year average. So we're bitching about average energy prices. You guys want to see what the Europeans and the Asians are struggling with? The marginal supplier sets the price. We haven't actually, until yesterday, had the infrastructure be taken offline. We are at the beginning of not a winter of discontent in Europe and China. We are at the end of the line. Europe was in recession a month ago because of energy prices. China would have been in recession because of energy prices, but it was already in recession because of COVID policy. One of the fun things about monetary policy, interest rates, is that you use interest rates to regulate credit availability in order to regulate demand. But as we'll see here in just a minute, there isn't a lot of demand left in Europe or China. They can never raise rates again. There is only one horse left drawing this carriage, and we now have elected the 3 most populous presidents in a row. We're done managing the global economy.